The emergency doors banged open, and winter air rushed into Rocky Ridge Medical Center, sharp with snow and exhaust. Inside Denver's night shift flowed through the corridor, shoes squeaking, monitors, chirping voices short and urgent. Dr. Ava Mercer walked in like the noise couldn't reach her. Scrubs clean, hair pinned tight, chin level, hands still. She was halfway to the charge desk when a man stepped into her path. Dr. Grant Wilder did not need an introduction. Residents nearby straightened on instinct. Even the gurney traffic seemed to curve around him. His eyes swept her with clinical distance. "You're the new surgical resident." "Yes, Dr. Wilder." He angled his head and spoke past her, loud enough for the hallway to hear. "She's not going on my service. Put her on ICU observation." Ava kept her posture. "There has to be a mistake. I'm assigned to trauma and OR call. I decide where you're useful." His voice stayed calm, which made it worse. "I'm not babysitting a fresh graduate." A nurse holding a tablet hesitated, then nodded and retreated. Ava reached for her ID badge to confirm the unit. The plastic edge caught her sleeve and tugged it up. On the inside of her left wrist, a small tattoo flashed a medical staff wrapped in concertina wire, 3 tiny stars above it. Wilder's color vanished. He stopped, mid-breath, fingers tightening around his surgical cap until the fabric creased. For a beat, the corridor softened into an uneasy hush. Ava slid her sleeve down at once, but his stare stayed fixed on the spot where the ink had been. "Just a tattoo," Ava said, steady. His jaw flexed. When he spoke, his voice dropped low and clean. "Don't lie to me." He stepped closer, close enough that she caught black coffee under antiseptic. The authority that had filled the hallway was gone, replaced by something raw that didn't belong on a chief of surgery. "Where is my son?" he whispered. Ava's ribs tightened as if the air had turned to wire. She met his eyes and felt the old instinct rise. Count exits slow, the breathing give nothing away. Behind Wilder, the nurse returned and held out the tablet without meeting Ava's gaze. "Dr. Mercer, your assignment has changed. ICU observation. Effective immediately." Ava took it. Her hands didn't shake until she turned toward the elevators. Her phone vibrated once in her pocket. One message from an unknown number. "Stay quiet. Do not tell Wilder anything." The sender name displayed as Cole. Ava didn't stop walking. She pressed her sleeve tighter against her wrist and stepped into the elevator's light face, composed while her pulse hammered behind her teeth. The doors slid shut. In the mirrored panel, she saw her own face, calm, untouchable. Her wrist ached like a warning tonight again. If you're enjoying this, please like and subscribe. And before I continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. The elevator opened onto the ICU floor with a soft chime that felt too polite for the knot in Ava Mercer's chest. The air changed the moment she stepped out. Cooler, drier, heavy with the clean bite of alcohol wipes and the warm plastic smell of ventilator tubing. A nurse at the desk glanced up at the tablet in Ava's hands, then at Ava's face, then back down again, as if hoping the screen might rewrite itself. "Observation Bay 3, the nurse said. Her voice carried the careful tone people used when they did not want to own a decision. "Vitals are stable. The attending wants you to chart watch trends and call for any changes." Ava looked past her at the rows of rooms, each with its own soundtrack of beeps and hushed voices. Observation. A holding pattern. A way to keep her out of sight. "Who signed the reassignment?" Ava asked. The nurse's gaze slid toward the ceiling tiles. "Dr. Wilder." Ava nodded once and walked shoes quiet on the waxed floor. She did not let her fingers go to her wrist. She did not look back toward the elevators, even though she felt the phantom pressure of a stare that could still be on her. Bay 3 held an older man with a fresh abdominal incision and a chest that rose under a ventilator's rhythm like a metronome. The monitor numbers held steady. A green line marched across the screen in calm waves. It was the kind of patient you got when someone wanted you busy without being useful. Ava sanitized her hands, slipped on gloves, and checked the lines with a precision that came from habit, not instruction. IV site. Clean. Drips labeled. Urine output acceptable. She wrote notes with neat spare language. Her phone vibrated again in her pocket. She waited until she was behind the curtain, then pulled it out low, shielded by the metal frame of the bed. Another message from the same unknown number. Do not speak to him. Do not show your wrist. Do not improvise. She stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Cole did not sign messages with a last name. Cole never used punctuation unless he meant it. Cole did not send warnings unless he already knew what was moving in the dark. Ava deleted the message, then powered her phone off. The silence that followed felt like stepping into deep water. She put the device back in her pocket and smoothed her scrub top as if any wrinkle could give her away. A voice behind her made her turn. "You're the new resident," the woman said, adjusting an IV pump with practiced hands. She was older, mid-40s maybe, with dark hair pulled into a bun and an expression that softened at the corners without losing its edge. Ava Mercer. Ava nodded, yes. The woman's badge read Mina Park RN. Mina glanced toward the main desk, then back. "They sent you up here fast." "Apparently." Mina's mouth twitched. "Apparently" is one word for it. Ava went back to the monitor, forcing her attention to the patient's rate and pressure. "How long have you been on this unit?" "Long enough to know what people do when they want you quiet." Mina checked the man's sedation, then looked at Ava's face with a directness that made it hard to hide behind polite distance. "They're talking about you downstairs." Ava kept her expression flat. "They always talk. Not like this." Mina lowered her voice. "They said Dr. Wilder froze in the ER." Ava's pen paused over the chart. Mina continued steady, as if describing weather. "That man doesn't freeze. He did a laparotomy during the mass shooting 3 years ago without raising his voice. He ran the surgical wing when the power went out in a blizzard. He's the kind of surgeon who makes interns stop breathing when he walks past." Ava forced her hand to keep moving writing numbers that she could already recite from memory. Mina leaned in slightly. "Today, he canceled 2 cases and locked himself in his office." Ava looked up, "Canceled surgeries." Mina nodded. 2 elective, 1 urgent. He pushed them to other attendings. He never does that." Ava felt the words land like something cold against her ribs. In the ER, Wilder's face had gone pale as paper. She had seen fear sharp and private before he pulled it back under authority. She had not expected it to ripple outward into the hospital's bloodstream. Mina studied her. "Whatever you did, it hit a nerve." "I didn't do anything," Ava said. Mina's eyes did not accuse her. They simply waited. "Honey, nobody makes Dr. Wilder lose his footing by accident." Ava's throat tightened. She set the chart down and checked the drip rate again because checking something was better than thinking. A chime sounded overhead, followed by a voice that snapped the ICU into motion. "Trauma team to emergency receiving. Level 1 incoming." The unit changed instantly. Nurses moved faster. Doors opened. A respiratory therapist grabbed a bag valve mask. Mina's gaze sharpened. "Level 1, Mina said. That's downstairs." Ava remained in place for half a second, then felt her feet start moving before she decided to. It was not ambition. It was reflex. Mina caught her at the edge of the bay. "Where are you going?" Ava hesitated. "They'll need hands." Mina glanced toward the desk, then back at Ava's eyes, reading what Ava would not say. "If Wilder put you up here, he expects you to stay up here." Ava swallowed. "I can help." Mina's mouth pressed into a line. Then she shifted her stance, blocking the view from the desk for a brief moment, just enough to be a choice. "Go through the back stairwell. If anyone asks, I sent you to restock supplies." Ava's gratitude was quick and silent. She moved. The stairwell smelled like concrete and old paint. Ava descended 2 flights, heart-thudding, palms dry. Somewhere below, a gurney squealed around a corner, and voices rose in that urgent cadence that made everything else irrelevant. She pushed through the door into the emergency receiving area and stepped into controlled chaos. A young man lay on a gurney shirt, cut open skin clammy and gray under harsh lights. A cervical collar framed his jaw. Blood soaked through gauze near his lower ribs. The monitor screamed in quick, uneven peaks. "Motorcycle versus pickup," a paramedic called out. "Found hypotensive. Pelvis unstable. Abdomen tender. Pressure keeps dropping. We gave 2 liters and started blood." A physician at the foot of the bed called for more help. "Where is Dr. Wilder?" A nurse answered without looking up. "He isn't responding." The physician's jaw tightened. "Get me any surgical resident. Now." Ava stepped forward. "I'm here." The physician turned eyes, scanning her badge. "Who are you?" "Dr. Ava Mercer," she said. "Surgical resident." The physician's badge read, "Lauren Shaw, MD." Dr. Shaw looked Ava over in one fast pass, the way a leader gauges a tool in a crisis. "Fine. Give me something useful." Ava moved to the patient's side. Her hands found pulses, checked skin temperature, traced bruising patterns that told stories without words. The man's abdomen was distended, but not where it should have been. His belly was tense, more on the left, and the swelling looked wrong, like pressure building in a hidden pocket. Ava's mind ran a map of injuries. Pelvic fracture, shearing forces, bleeding where you could not compress it. "He's bleeding retroperitoneal," Ava said. Dr. Shaw's head snapped toward her. "You sure?" Ava pressed gently, watching the patient's face twitch despite sedation. "Look at the left flank. He's filling the space behind the abdomen. If we rush him straight to open without stabilizing, he'll arrest on the table." "CT," a nurse asked. Dr. Shaw shook her head. "He won't survive the hallway." Ava watched the pressure drop again. 70 over 40, then 68. A sound in Ava's ears rose, the old one, the one that came before everything narrowed to a single job. In her mind, she saw not Denver's ER, but dust and smoke, and headlights on a road that could swallow you. "You need a temporary aortic control," Ava said. Dr. Shaw frowned. "You're talking about REBOA, not balloon." Ava answered quickly. "A temporary shunt. Clamp high, get control, buy time. We can bridge him until you can repair what's torn." Dr. Shaw stared at her, then at the monitor, then back. "Have you done it?" Ava did not have room for pride or fear. Only truth. "Yes." Dr. Shaw's eyes changed. Not trust, not yet, but recognition that time did not care about credentials. "Scrub, in," Dr. Shaw said. "Your lead on the shunt. I'll handle the exploration once we stabilize." Ava nodded and moved. Her body knew the route to the scrub sinks without being taught. She washed in silence, forearms up, water running clear over skin that felt too exposed. She kept her sleeve down as far as it would go, even wet, even inconvenient. She did not need anyone else's eyes on her wrist. In the operating room, the lights were brutally bright. The patient lay draped in blue, a field of fabric around a single opening. Ava's gloved hands hovered for a moment as the first incision began, and she felt a familiar calm settle into her shoulders. Her movements became clean, efficient, no wasted motion. She worked the way she had learned in places where a minute could be the difference between a body returning home or not returning at all. "Retractor," she said, and a scrub tech placed it into her hand before the request finished. Ava found the vessel, controlled the bleeding, and placed the temporary shunt with a steadiness that made the room quiet. The anesthesiologist called out numbers that started to climb instead of fall. "Pressure improving," he said. "We're coming back." Dr. Shaw let out a breath she had been holding. "Okay," she said, voice lower now. "Now we can actually fix him." They worked for hours. Dr. Shaw repaired torn vessels with meticulous care. Ava held suctioned, clamped, sutured. Her hands never slipping her mind, never wandering, because wandering was a luxury she could not afford. When the final stitches went in and the dressing was placed, the monitor displayed a steady rhythm that sounded almost like relief. In the hallway outside the operating rooms, Dr. Shaw pulled her mask down and looked at Ava as if she were seeing her for the first time. "Where did you learn that?" Dr. Shaw asked. Ava peeled off her gloves, careful, slow, as if speed might reveal something underneath. "Medical school back east." "That was not medical school," Dr. Shaw said quietly. Ava met her gaze. "I worked overseas." Dr. Shaw studied Ava's face, then nodded, as if filing the answer away for later, for a time when later existed. "Whatever you did," she said, "it saved him." The door at the end of the corridor opened and the air changed again. Dr. Grant Wilder stood there, arms folded, surgical cap in his hand. He had the stillness of a man who had been watching for a long time without blinking. His eyes went straight to Ava's wrist, then to her face. The hallway noise fell back as staff drifted away pretending to be busy. Wilder spoke with a calm that sounded practiced. "Dr. Mercer," he said, "my office." Now, Ava did not argue in the hallway. Not because she wanted to obey him, and not because she was afraid of his title. It was the way the air shifted around Grant Wilder, the way people stepped aside without being told. She had seen that kind of gravity before. It did not come from confidence alone. It came from a lifetime of being obeyed. She followed him past the operating rooms, past a row of glass panels that reflected her in fragments. Blue cap, loose curls pinned tight, eyes too steady for someone who was supposed to be new. A scrub tech turned his head away the second Ava looked in his direction. A resident pretended to read a chart on a wall display that was clearly asleep. Their curiosity had teeth, but nobody wanted to be caught biting. Wilder's office sat at the end of a quieter corridor, away from the noise, away from the mess, like it had been built to keep unpleasant truths from wandering in. He opened the door and stepped aside just long enough for her to enter. Then he closed it behind them with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. Ava took one glance and cataloged the room the way she always did. Desk in the center, chairs placed deliberately to control distance, a bookshelf heavy with textbooks and framed awards. A wall of photographs, many of them posed in operating rooms, surgeons lined up shoulder to shoulder in masks and caps, eyes bright with victory. Then she saw the one frame that did not belong with the others. A younger man in uniform smiling as if the world had never taken anything from him. Broad shoulders, calm eyes, a familiar tilt of the jaw. Lucas Wilder. Ava felt something tighten low in her throat. Wilder followed her gaze, and his face did not change. He moved around the desk and positioned himself so that the picture sat just off his right shoulder, like a warning. "Sit," he said. Ava remained standing. "You wanted to talk. I wanted answers." His voice stayed controlled, but the control looked expensive, like it took effort to buy every word. Ava kept her hands at her sides, sleeves pulled down. "Ask." Wilder did not sit either. He stayed on his feet closer than necessary, eyes sharp and unblinking. "That technique you used," he said, "you did not learn it in a residency program." Ava let a small pause hang just long enough to be honest without spilling more than she intended. "I learned it where it was needed." Wilder's mouth tightened. "Where?" Ava met his gaze. "Overseas." He studied her face the way a surgeon studies tissue he does not trust. "That answer does not fit the rest of you." Ava did not flinch. "I am here. That is what matters." Wilder moved to his computer, tapped a few keys, and turned the screen toward her. Ava saw her own name in a file header, a photo beneath it older than the one on her hospital badge. Her hair was shorter. Her eyes looked hollow, as if they had learned to live without sleep. The rest of the document was a patchwork of black blocks and clipped lines. Dr. Ava Mercer Wilder, read aloud, voice even. Medical degree, 2 years surgical training. Then nothing. A gap. Then you appear in Denver with a resume that looks like it has been taken apart with a razor. He tapped the screen. "Most of this is redacted, but not all." Ava said nothing. Wilder's finger moved lower. "Affiliated with a combat medical response unit under Special Operations Command. Commendations. For valor. Field credentialing. Emergency surgical authority beyond standard scope." His eyes lifted from the screen and pinned her, and a tattoo that matches the insignia used by that unit. Ava felt the old instinct rise again, the one that told her to say less than she knew. It is not an insignia. It is a mark. Wilder took one step closer. "It is a mark you did not get at a tattoo parlor." Ava's voice stayed calm. "No." "Then tell me what it means." Ava's pulse beat in her wrists. She did not move her sleeve. "It means I was cleared to perform certain procedures in certain conditions." Wilder's jaw flexed. "Cleared by whom?" "You know the answer." Ava kept her eyes on his even as the memory threatened to rise. The smell of diesel, the taste of dust, the scream of incoming rounds that you felt through your bones. Wilder watched her for a long moment, then his voice dropped lower. You did not come here by accident. Ava's stomach tightened. I applied for a residency. I accepted an offer. That is not an accident. That is paperwork. Wilder's gaze flicked to her wrist again. Paperwork does not explain why you walked into my emergency department and made my blood go cold. Ava held her face steady. Your blood is not my responsibility. His expression shifted, a flash of anger that broke through the restraint. My son is. The words landed hard in the quiet office. Ava did not answer. Wilder's eyes narrowed. You knew I had a son. I did not know who you were, Ava said. Not until the hallway. He gave a short, humorless sound. So you just happened to choose the hospital where his father runs surgery. Ava's voice sharpened. You are not the only chief of surgery in Colorado. Wilder did not blink. Where is he? Ava felt her ribs tighten as if a hand had closed around them. She forced herself to breathe. In slow, measured counts. Wilder's voice was softer now, but it cut deeper. Where is Lucas? Ava's gaze drifted to the photo again, and for a moment, the office blurred into something else. A road at night, a convoy moving too fast. The sky lit white for half a second, then orange, then black smoke. Radio chatter turning into panic. Metal screaming. A body dragged out of a wrecked vehicle. A man coughing blood and trying to stay brave for the people around him. Her hands remembered the weight of a scalpel in a moving armored truck. The way the vehicle lurched as it hit potholes. The way her own breath sounded loud inside a helmet. She swallowed and the office came back into focus. Wilder's face had lost its arrogance. What remained was a father holding himself together by sheer refusal to fall apart. Ava spoke carefully. He was alive the last time I saw him. Wilder's eyes widened and relief crossed his face so fast it almost looked like light. Then it vanished, replaced by the sharp edge of the rest of that sentence. The last time, he repeated, voice hollow. When? Ava kept her tone neutral because she did not trust anything softer. Outside Mosul, a convoy was hit. There was an explosion, then small arms fire. They got him to us late. Wilder's hands tightened against the desk edge. How bad? Ava exhaled through her nose. Shrapnel to the chest and abdomen. He was in shock. He coded twice before we got him stable enough to move. Wilder made a sound like he had been struck. He gripped the desk harder, knuckles paling. Ava continued, words precise. I opened his chest in a vehicle. We had limited light, limited supplies. We did what we could to keep his heart moving until we reached the field facility. Wilder's throat worked. You are saying you performed a thoracotomy in the back of a truck? Ava nodded once. Yes. How long did you operate? Ava's jaw tightened, the number heavy in her mouth. 11 hours. Silence filled the room, thick and unmoving. Wilder's eyes were wet now, but his voice stayed steady. And he lived. He lived, Ava said. Against probability. Against everything. Wilder closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, the relief had curdled into something else. Then, where is he? He said, the words coming out rougher. If he lived, why has he vanished? Why have I had nothing for over a year? No calls, no letters. Just official updates that say he is unavailable. Ava's stomach sank. This was the part she could not fix with a clamp and a suture. 3 days after surgery, she said men arrived in civilian clothes. They took him. Wilder went very still. Who? I do not know. You did not ask. I asked, Ava said, her voice sharpening, despite her effort. They did not answer. They did not give a handover. They did not sign a transfer. He was simply removed. Wilder's eyes flared. Removed to where? Ava held his gaze. I do not know. His face twisted with pain. Then anger rose over it like a tide. That information was above your clearance. Ava did not respond. She did not deny it because it was true. Wilder turned away from her and stared out the window at the city, at the hard light on the mountains beyond, as if staring might force the world to change. Do you know what it is like? He said quietly, to have a child disappear inside the machinery of his own government. Ava's throat tightened. She knew. She had seen it from the other side, parents standing on bases with paperwork in their hands, hungry for any word that would make the unknown stop eating them alive. She kept her voice low. I am sorry. Wilder snapped his head back. Sorry does not help me. The anger in him found a new target, and Ava felt it land on her. Why are you here? He demanded. Why show up in my hospital with that mark and those skills? If you cannot tell me what happened to him. Ava's own control frayed at the edges. I did not know you were his father. Wilder's eyes narrowed. Convenient. Ava took a breath. I came here because I needed to stop being that person. I needed to be a surgeon in a normal hospital. I needed to sleep without hearing radio chatter in my head. Wilder stared at her as if weighing the truth. Nobody leaves those units, he said. Not clean. Ava's lips pressed together. Wilder's voice dropped again, colder now. So what went wrong? What did you see? Ava's heart beat harder. She felt her phone in her pocket like a stone. I did not come here to talk about that, she said. You came here with a story on your skin. Wilder snapped, and his eyes flicked to her sleeve. You walked into my building and I recognized you before you spoke. You know what that means. Ava held her ground. It means you recognized the symbol. It means you were there, Wilder said. It means you were close to my son at the moment. My life went dark. Ava did not speak. Wilder's face tightened. Tell me he is alive now. Ava hesitated, and in that hesitation the room changed. Wilder leaned forward slightly, catching the pause like a predator catches a scent. You do not know, he said. It was not a question. I know he survived his injuries, Ava said. That is all I can claim with certainty. Wilder's voice rose. That is not enough. Ava's voice stayed level, but it was edged now. It is the truth I have. Wilder stood very still, then walked to the door and pulled it open. The gesture looked like dismissal, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. I am going to find out everything about you, Dr. Mercer, he said. Every detail they tried to hide. Every mission they blurred. Every reason you were forced out. Ava's pulse kicked. You do not have the authority. Wilder's mouth tightened. Watch me. Ava stepped into the hallway. People pretended not to look, but she felt their attention like heat. She walked without hurrying, without running, because running was admission. Her hands stayed in her pockets to keep from touching her wrist. When she reached the stairwell, her phone vibrated against her palm through the fabric. One more message this time, a single line. You told him. Ava did not reply. She kept walking. Her shift ended after midnight. She did not go home. She sat in her car in the hospital garage, engine off the concrete around her, holding the cold like a freezer. From her seat, she could see the hospital's glass entrance bright and busy. Even at this hour, a place built to save lives, while secrets slipped through its hallways like smoke. Her phone lit up again. Missed call. Unknown number. Then another. Then another. 17 in total, stacked like accusations. Ava stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Finally, on the 18th call she answered. Cole's voice came through sharp and low. Did you tell Wilder that Lucas survived? Ava gripped the steering wheel. He is his father. His father has no clearance, Cole said. His father has no right. He has a right to know his son is not dead. Cole's breath sounded tight. You think you gave him comfort. You gave him a reason to dig. Wilder will not stop now. Ava's mouth went dry. I said only what I saw. I said I do not know where Lucas is. That is enough, Cole said. Wilder will call every friend he has. Politicians, generals, anyone who owes him a favor. And the moment he shakes the wrong tree, the people sitting in the branches will notice. Ava felt the cold spread under her ribs. What do you want from me? I want you gone, Cole said. Resign tonight. Leave Denver. Disappear. Ava's jaw tightened. I am not in the service anymore. Cole's voice turned harder. You are still in the blast radius. Whether you admit it or not. Ava swallowed. If Lucas is alive, why are you panicking? A pause. Then Cole spoke slower, each word measured. Because Lucas is not just missing. He is a problem. A problem the wrong people will solve permanently. And if Wilder keeps asking questions, he becomes a problem too. Ava's grip tightened until her fingers hurt. You are threatening me. I am warning you, Cole said. There are eyes on that hospital, not just Wilder's. If you stay and keep talking, you will not get a chance to explain yourself again. The line went dead. Ava sat in the dark, with the phone pressed to her ear, listening to nothing, feeling her own pulse in the silence. Through the windshield, the hospital doors opened and closed with steady rhythm, nurses and orderlies moving under fluorescent light, unaware of the machinery turning somewhere beyond their sight. Ava stayed in the parking garage until the concrete ceiling began to pale with morning. She did not sleep. She sat with her hands on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the hospital doors beyond the glass, watching people drift in and out like nothing in the world had shifted. Her phone sat dark in her lap, powered off. It still felt loud. When the clock on the dashboard clicked to 6:12, she finally moved. She slid out of the car, pulled her coat tight, and crossed the garage toward the employee entrance. Cold air caught in her lungs. She tasted it like metal. Inside the hospital was quieter than it had been at midnight. The corridors held that pre-dawn hush where the night shift thinned and the day shift had not yet arrived in force. A janitor pushed a mop bucket past her without looking up. Somewhere a call light chimed and stopped. Ava kept her sleeve down and walked with the same measured pace she had used in war zones. Not fast, not slow. The speed of someone who belongs. Grant Wilder's office door was closed when she reached it. She lifted a hand to knock, then stopped. From inside came the faint scrape of paper, the click of a printer tray. A man working before sunrise because he could not stand still. She knocked. Come in, Wilder called, voice flat. Ava stepped inside. The office looked different in daylight. Less intimidating, more exposed. Wilder sat behind his desk, shoulders squared, eyes red at the edges as if he had been awake all night. The desk surface was buried under folders, printouts, and photographs. A legal pad held tight handwriting in neat columns. A laptop sat open, screen glowing. Wilder did not offer greeting. Sit. Ava sat in the chair opposite him. She kept her hands in her lap. He slid a thick file across the desk. The paper edge scraped slow and deliberate, like he wanted her to hear the sound. I made calls, he said. Every favor I have. Every professional debt collected over 3 decades. This is what I got. Ava opened the file. Her own face stared up at her from a military identification photo. Hair darker from dust, jaw-set, eyes flat, with the kind of distance that did not belong in a hospital. Under the photo, lines of text. Some clear, some blacked out. Enough to build a shape. Dr. Ava Mercer, Medical Officer, Special Operations Medical Response. Deployments 2. Commendations multiple. Ava's mouth went dry. Wilder watched her read. They did not scrub you as clean as they thought. Ava kept her gaze on the page. This is private. You walked into my emergency department with a mark that told me exactly what you were, Wilder said. Privacy left the room then. Ava turned the page. More redactions, but fewer than she expected. A list of citations. A timeline. A block of text near the end that made her fingers tighten. Separation, medical. Evaluation, psychological. Diagnosis, acute stress reaction. Complicated grief. Operational exposure. Mandatory discharge. Ava's throat tightened. She had not seen those words in a long time. She had not wanted to. Wilder tapped the line with one finger. That is the part that interests me. Ava lifted her eyes. That is none of your business. Wilder's voice stayed calm, but it sounded strained now. It becomes my business when the date matches the week my son vanished into classified silence. Ava held his gaze and said nothing. Wilder flipped another document from his stack and pushed it toward her. This one had an official seal, fewer black bars. Your separation was not voluntary, he said. They wrote it as medical, but what they did was remove you. They took your career and buried it under paperwork. Ava's fingers curled. I asked for a transfer. I asked to continue training. And they said no. Wilder finished, eyes sharp. They do not remove people like you unless something goes wrong. Unless you see something you cannot unsee. Ava's pulse thudded behind her eyes. She tried to keep her breathing steady. Wilder leaned forward slightly. What happened in the 72 hours between when you saved Lucas and when they took him? Ava swallowed. I told you what I know. You told me what you are willing to say. Wilder snapped, and the snap surprised even him. His jaw tightened as he reined it back in. You were fine in the hallway until I asked about him. Then you got quiet. Not confused. Not curious. Quiet like you were calculating. Ava's voice stayed low. I am careful. That is not an answer. Wilder's hand flattened on the desk. My son is not a rumor. He is not a line on a form. He is my child. Ava stared at the photo of Lucas on the corner of Wilder's desk. The smiling face, the ease in his eyes. Ava remembered those eyes when they were full of pain and stubbornness when he tried to talk through blood. Wilder's voice rose tight with strain. Tell me what you saw. Ava's hands remained still. There are things I am legally bound not to discuss. Wilder pushed back his chair and stood. Paper shifted across the desk as his knee bumped it. To hell with legal. Ava did not flinch, but her spine stiffened. Wilder moved around the desk, stopping close enough that Ava had to tilt her head to keep eye contact. His voice was not loud now. It was worse, quiet and vibrating. Clearances exist for a reason, Ava said. What reason justifies telling a father his son is unavailable? Wilder said. What reason justifies letting me live in this fog for 18 months? Ava's jaw tightened. You think I wanted this? Wilder's eyes narrowed. You know more than you are saying. Ava did not respond. Wilder's lips pressed together, then he gave a single sharp nod, as if confirming something to himself. I am going to keep digging. Ava rose from the chair. If you dig in the wrong direction, you will get people killed. Wilder stared at her. Who? Ava's heart beat hard. Her sleeve felt heavy. Before she could answer, the office door opened without knocking. Dr. Lauren Shaw stepped in, and the color in her face was gone. Her eyes flicked to Ava, then to Wilder. Grant, she said, voice tight, we have a problem. Wilder's posture shifted instantly. What? There are federal agents in the administrative wing, Shaw said. They are asking for Dr. Mercer. Ava's blood cooled. Wilder's expression changed not to fear, but to recognition. He looked at Ava as if he had just found the edge of the thing she had been warning him about. Shaw swallowed. They have paperwork. They are not here for a friendly chat. Wilder's voice went hard. On what basis? Shaw glanced at the page in her hand. It says unauthorized disclosure of classified information, violation of federal law, and conspiracy to aid a fugitive. The last word hit Ava like a shove. Fugitive. Wilder turned to Ava slowly. Lucas. Ava's mouth went dry. I did not disclose anything. Shaw's gaze held Ava's for a moment, and Ava saw the confusion there. A doctor's confusion. A person who believed in rules, looking at a reality that did not fit them. Wilder opened his office door wider. They can speak to her in front of me, Grant Shaw said, warning in her voice. This is my hospital, Wilder replied, and she is under my authority while she is inside it. Ava followed them, legs moving, even as her mind raced. The hallway looked normal. People carried coffee. A unit clerk laughed at something on her screen. The normalcy made the danger feel more unreal, like a fire behind a painted wall. They reached the administrative wing. A security guard stood outside a conference room, face-stiff hands clasped at his belt, as if he had been told to behave. Inside, 3 people waited. 2 men in dark suits sat side by side, posture straight, eyes flat. The kind of flat that made it hard to imagine them smiling. A woman stood near the window, arms relaxed, but the way she held her weight said training. Mid-40s, hair pulled back tight, no jewelry, eyes that measured distance and threat without apology. The woman stepped forward first. Dr. Ava Mercer. It was not a question. Ava kept her voice steady. Yes, I am Dana Pierce, the woman said. Department of Defense Investigative Services. She turned her head slightly, indicating the 2 men without warmth. Special Agent Noah Chen. Special Agent Elena Martinez. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Wilder moved to Ava's side like a wall. I am Dr. Grant Wilder, Chief of Surgery, and I am Captain Lucas Wilder's father. Agent Pierce did not react in the way most people reacted to that sentence. No sympathy, no softening. Her eyes slid over Wilder as if he were furniture. "This is a matter of national security," Pierce said. "You need to leave." Wilder's voice sharpened. "No." Agent Chen shifted slightly in his chair, watching Wilder with the calm attention of someone used to confrontation. Pierce's gaze returned to Ava. "We are going to ask you questions. Your answers must be complete and truthful." Wilder cut in. "Any questions you have for my employee can be asked in front of me." Pierce's jaw tightened. For a second, the air in the room felt like stretched wire. Then she gave a small nod, as if choosing efficiency. "Fine," she said. "But understand this. Everything discussed in this room is classified. Disclosure carries severe penalties." Ava did not respond. She could feel Wilder's presence at her shoulder, steady and tense. Pierce looked at Ava. "When was the last time you had contact with Captain Lucas Wilder?" Ava's heartbeat thudded once. 18 months ago. I treated him overseas." Pierce's eyes narrowed slightly. "You have had no contact since?" "No. Not a message, not a phone call, not an email, not a package." Ava kept her face calm. "No." Agent Martinez leaned forward a fraction. "You are certain?" "Yes." Pierce held Ava's gaze as if waiting for a crack. When none came, she reached into a folder and slid a tablet across the table toward Ava. The screen showed grainy footage from a security camera. A man in a dark jacket moved through an airport concourse, head turned slightly away from the lens. The angle hid most of his face, but his build was unmistakable. The way he walked, controlled even in a crowd, as if he expected danger from every direction. Ava felt her stomach drop. Pierce's voice was even. "That is Captain Wilder, captured 6 days ago at Vancouver International Airport." Wilder made a sound that was not a word. He stared at the screen, face-drained hands gripping the back of Ava's chair, hard enough that his knuckles paled. Pierce continued. "Captain Wilder went absent from his unit 3 weeks ago. He is wanted in connection with the theft of classified intelligence materials and the deaths of 2 Department of Defense contractors." Wilder's breath hitched. "That is impossible." Ava heard herself speak too fast. Lucas would not do that. Pierce's eyes sharpened. "Would not betray his country." "He is not," Wilder said, voice tight. Pierce did not acknowledge the emotion. She scrolled the tablet, bringing up a document with blocks of text and timestamps. Captain Wilder was transferred to a classified medical facility after his injury. During recovery, he began asking questions about an operation that resulted in the deaths of his team members. He became a security concern. Wilder's voice cracked. A concern because he asked why his friends died. Pierce's expression did not change. Because he began collecting answers. Ava felt the room tilt slightly as if the ground under it had shifted. Pierce tapped the tablet again. A new screen appeared, a bank record. Numbers, a date, a deposit highlighted in yellow. 4 months ago, Pierce said $50,000 was deposited into your account from an offshore source. The transfer path is intentionally obscured, but the timing matches Captain Wilder's last confirmed location before he went dark. Ava stared at the screen. Her mouth went dry. "That is not mine." Agent Chen's voice was flat. "It is your account number." "I never saw that money," Ava said. Her hands stayed still on the table, but her pulse hammered in her wrists. "I did not authorize it. I do not know anything about it." Pierce watched her closely. "Convenient." Wilder leaned forward, voice dangerous. "You are accusing her on a deposit she says she did not receive." Pierce's eyes flicked to him, then away. "We are presenting facts." Ava forced herself to inhale slowly. She could feel Cole's warning like a hand on the back of her neck. Pierce spoke again, measured. "During your 72 hours with Captain Wilder, did he say anything unusual? Any names? Any intentions? Any grievances? Any contacts?" Ava pictured Lucas on a cot, sweat on his brow, trying to speak through pain, asking for his team, asking who made the call, asking why the route had been changed. She kept her face neutral. "He was barely conscious," Ava said. "He spoke very little." Pierce leaned forward slightly. "Our psychological profiles indicate he formed a strong attachment to you. You saved his life. That creates a bond. A bond that can become a channel. Ava kept her voice steady. He has not contacted me. Wilder's hand tightened on the chair behind her. Pierce held Ava's gaze for a long beat, then looked down at her notes. The room felt smaller, as if the walls had shifted closer. Agent Martinez spoke calm and precise. If we find evidence that you withheld contact, you will be taken into custody immediately. Ava did not react. She did not allow her eyes to flick to Wilder. She kept her expression smooth, even as her thoughts collided and rearranged into new shapes. Fugitive, Vancouver, money, dead contractors. Pierce closed the folder with a soft thump. You will provide your phone records, financial statements, and full access to your communications. Any attempt to contact Captain Wilder will be treated as conspiracy. Wilder's voice was low, restrained by force. And my son. Where is he now? Pierce looked at him for the first time with something close to impatience. You will be informed. Through proper channels. Wilder's jaw clenched. Proper channels are the reason I am sitting here. Pierce stood. This interview is not finished. It is paused. Ava rose as well, legs steady out of habit. As Pierce turned toward the door, she stopped and looked back at Ava. One last time. Has Captain Wilder contacted you? Ava felt Wilder's gaze on her like heat. She felt the weight of the tablet image in her mind. She felt Cole's warning hanging in the air of the garage, cold and final. Ava met Pierce's eyes and answered in a voice that did not shake. No. The word landed cleanly, almost too clean, like a bandage pressed over an artery. Agent Dana Pierce held Ava's gaze for a long beat, hunting for tremor, a swallow, a blink that lasted half a second too long. Ava gave her none. The only sound in the room was the hum of the overhead vent and the soft click of Agent Chen's pen as he capped it. Pierce slid a sheet of paper across the table. You will comply with the data request. Phone records, bank statements, any messaging accounts, your work schedule, your access logs. Ava glanced down. She did not touch the paper yet. If you attempt contact with Captain Wilder, Pierce continued, it will be treated as conspiracy. If you possess knowledge of his location and fail to report it, you will be taken into custody immediately. Grant Wilder's hand was still on the back of Ava's chair, hard enough that the plastic creaked under his grip. His eyes stayed on Pierce, not pleading, not soft. The look of a man trying to memorize an enemy. Pierce gathered her folder and tablet. This conversation never happened outside this room. Not in the hall, not at home, not in your own head where you think it is safe. Do you understand me, Dr. Mercer? Ava's voice remained even. Yes. Pierce turned toward the door. Wilder spoke low and sharp. My son is not a murderer. Pierce did not stop walking. Then you should hope he gives himself up before someone decides to stop asking questions. The conference room door shut behind them. For a moment, the silence felt physical. Ava heard her own breathing. She heard the distant rhythm of hospital life. A printer somewhere, a cart rolling, a nurse calling a room number in a calm voice, all of it indifferent to the fact that Ava's world had just narrowed to a few sentences spoken by the wrong people. Wilder remained standing behind her chair, shoulders rigid. When Ava finally looked up, she saw that his face had changed. The anger from his office had drained out, replaced by something ash-colored and stunned. He sank into the nearest chair without grace. The movement looked unplanned, like his knees had simply given up. My son, he said softly, as if trying the word again. Vancouver. Ava stayed still. She did not reach for him. She did not offer comfort. She had learned that comfort could be a weapon, a way to coax information out of people who were too tired to protect themselves. She would not do that to him. Wilder stared at the blank wall eyes, unfocused. They showed me a video of my child walking through an airport like a stranger. And they call him a fugitive. His voice tightened on the last word. Ava heard the unspoken thought behind it. Fugitive meant hunted. It meant cornered. It meant mistakes. It meant death if the wrong people got there first. Wilder finally turned his head and looked at her. You knew, he said. Ava held his gaze. I did not know about Vancouver. I did not know about contractors. I did not know what they just claimed. You knew something, Wilder said. The volume did not rise, but the accusation sharpened anyway. That is why Pierce walked in here like she owned the building. That is why you are in my hospital. That is why someone is wiring money into your account. Ava's stomach clenched again. I did not receive any money. Wilder's eyes did not soften. Then someone wants you connected to him, whether you agreed or not. Ava stared at the sheet of demands Pierce left on the table. The paper looked ordinary. Plain font, government headings, a list of items. It was the kind of document that could dismantle a life in a week. Wilder leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Tell me the truth. Ava's throat tightened. She thought of Cole's voice in her ear in the garage. Leave Denver. Disappear. There are eyes on that hospital. She thought of Lucas's face on the photo in Wilder's office, the version of him, before the road blew up, before the questions started eating him alive. Ava let out a slow breath. I knew there was a program. Wilder went still. What program? Ava chose words the way she chose incisions. Minimal. Necessary. No extra bleeding. The day before my separation, she said I overheard two officers talking. They were discussing a soldier transferred after an injury. They called it observation. Not medical observation. Operational observation. Wilder's jaw worked, a prison. Ava did not correct him. She did not need to. They said the soldier became a security risk. Ava continued. They mentioned an ambush, a route leak, a unit that asked the wrong questions. I did not hear names, not clearly, but I recognized enough to understand the conversation was about Lucas. Wilder's eyes widened, and for an instant he looked like he might stand up and pace, like motion could force his mind into something less painful. And you said nothing, he said. Ava felt the sting of it sharp and deserved. I was ordered to stay silent. I was threatened, not with paperwork, with prison, with things that do not leave marks on forms. Wilder's voice rose. So you chose yourself. Ava flinched just slightly, then forced her face back into calm. I chose to survive. Wilder stared at her, breathing hard through his nose. The grief in his eyes did not move, did not soften. It only sharpened into anger with somewhere to land. 18 months, he said. 18 months of me asking the Army liaison if he was alive. 18 months of being told he cannot contact you because of operational security. And you sat with the knowledge that he was being watched, contained, neutralized. Ava's fingers curled in her lap. I did not know where they took him. I did not know what they did to him. I did not even know if the conversation I overheard was current or old or meant to scare someone. I tried to bury it. Wilder's laugh was short and bitter. And the burying brought you here. Ava's gaze dropped for a moment. She did not deny it. She had not understood the pull when she chose Denver. She told herself it was distance, a fresh hospital, a different skyline. But some part of her had wanted to be close to the only person who would understand the shape of the loss. Wilder's voice turned low again. Pierce said he formed an attachment to you. Ava's jaw tightened. I was his surgeon. You were more than that, Wilder said. Not in some romantic sense. In the sense that when a man wakes up alive after he should have died, he remembers the hands that kept him breathing. Ava did not answer. Wilder's eyes narrowed. Have you heard from him? Ava stayed silent. Wilder's gaze hardened. Ava. That was the first time he said her first name. It did not sound kind. It sounded like a lever. Ava closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. 3 days ago. Wilder did not breathe. The room felt like it tilted slightly toward him, like the air itself wanted the words to keep coming. It was not a normal message, Ava said. It came encrypted, routed through layers. It disappeared after I read it. But I knew it was him. Wilder's voice came out rough. What did he say? Ava swallowed. He said the ambush was ordered. Wilder blinked. Ordered by whom? He did not name everyone, Ava said. He named one. A general. Wilder's eyes searched her face. Which general? Ava hesitated. The name felt like a flare. He wrote that General Adrian Kessler authorized the operation that got his team hit. Ava said quietly. He wrote that it was not a mistake. It was an elimination. Wilder's hands clenched into fists. Kessler. Ava watched the name hit him. If Wilder knew Kessler, it meant the man was not a shadow. He was a presence, a handshake, a photograph, the kind of evil that wore uniforms and smiled for cameras. Ava continued, voice-controlled. Lucas said his unit witnessed illegal weapons transfers. He said there were deals with groups they were supposed to be fighting. He said he found proof. Wilder's throat worked. Proof where? Ava shook her head slightly. He did not send it. He said he hid it. Wilder leaned forward, eyes burning. Where? He said somewhere safe, Ava replied. Somewhere only I could access if something happened to him. Wilder stared at her, desperate and furious at the same time. Why you? Why not me? Ava's voice tightened. Because you are monitored. Your phone, your email, your house, your hospital privileges. He said he could not risk touching your life directly. Wilder's mouth opened, then closed. The idea of being watched inside his own home seemed to hit him harder than Pierce's threats. Ava went on. He said he trusted me to be the messenger because I was already damaged in their files. Already separated. Already easy to discredit. Wilder's eyes flashed. And you kept this from me. Ava swallowed. I did not know if it was real. I did not know if it was bait designed to make me break silence. I have been living with the expectation that if I say one wrong word, someone will arrive with a warrant or worse. Wilder's gaze locked on hers. But you knew enough to lie to Pierce. Ava's breathing slowed. She held her face steady. Yes. Wilder sat back slightly as if the admission carried weight. Why? Ava's voice dropped. Because if Pierce is working for Kessler, then telling her the truth would be signing Lucas's death certificate. Wilder stared at the table, eyes unfocused again, trying to fit the pieces together. His hands shook slightly now, barely visible, the tremor of a man who has held himself rigid for too long. Ava watched him and felt something shift in her chest. Not pity. Responsibility. Wilder finally looked up. Where is the evidence? Ava shook her head. I do not know. Only you can access it. Wilder said, bitterness threading through his words. And you do not know where it is. Ava's mouth went tight. I have been turning the message over and over, trying to find the clue. Wilder stood abruptly and walked to the window. The morning sun had risen higher, lighting the tops of the distant mountains beyond Denver. The city looked calm from here. Streets, cars, a world where people thought rules protected them. My son is running, he said quietly. Running from his own government. Ava did not contradict him. Wilder turned back. The anger in him had cooled into something steadier, more dangerous. Decision. We find it, he said. Ava's pulse spiked. Grant, if we do that, they will call it conspiracy. They will put you in handcuffs in your own hospital. I do not care, Wilder said. His voice was flat, and the flatness scared her more than shouting. If my son is being hunted because he tried to expose corruption, then I am already involved, whether I want to be or not. Ava held his gaze. We cannot use phones. We cannot use hospital email. We cannot ask questions the wrong people can overhear. Wilder nodded once, then we do not. Ava felt the edge of the paper Pierce left behind under her fingertips. They will come back. They will, Wilder agreed. And they will not be polite forever. Ava closed her eyes for a moment and replayed Lucas's words. Somewhere safe. Somewhere only you can access. She saw the way he thought tactical even when bleeding. She saw the way he would choose a place that looked boring, unimportant, invisible. A place no one searched unless they knew exactly what they were looking for. Ava opened her eyes. The hospital, she said. Wilder's brow tightened. What? Ava's voice stayed low, but certainty slid into it. He hid it here. Wilder stared at her, trying to reject it on instinct. He has never been here. Ava shook her head. He would not need to be a patient. He would only need access. A uniform, a badge, a contractor vest, a friend in the right department. He knows how buildings work. He knows how systems work. Wilder's jaw tightened as the idea took shape. The hospital as a vault. The hospital as a blind spot. Ava continued slower now. If he knew I was applying here, if he tracked me, if he needed an anchor point, this is the only place in my life that could be both public and overlooked. Wilder's eyes narrowed, and he knew his father is here. Ava did not answer. She did not need to. Wilder looked at the door, then back at Ava. His face held fear, but it was no longer paralyzing. It had become fuel. Then we start, he said. Ava nodded once, and the knot in her chest tightened into something cleaner. Purpose. Not safety. Not comfort. Purpose. Ava and Wilder left the administrative wing without speaking. The corridors were waking up now. Coffee cups, clipboards. The first wave of day staff moving with fresh energy that made Ava feel even more out of place. Wilder walked beside her shoulders, squared face composed for the cameras. Ava kept half a step back, eyes scanning corners and ceiling tiles, counting lenses without looking like she was counting. When they reached a junction, Wilder stopped near a wall display showing OR schedules. He stood in front of it as if reviewing cases, blocking Ava from view for a moment. "Keep working like nothing happened," he said quietly. "If Pierce comes back today, they will watch reactions. They will watch patterns." Ava stared at the screen as if it mattered. "My pattern is already wrong. They pulled me off trauma and shoved me into the ICU. And you saved a patient in the OR anyway," Wilder replied, voice flat. "You made noise." Ava's jaw tightened. He was dying. Wilder's eyes flicked to her wrist again, then away. "I am not arguing the ethics. I am talking about attention." Ava breathed in slowly. "I know." He nodded once, then pointed toward a side corridor. "Use the back stairwell. No elevator cameras." Ava did not ask how he knew. She suspected he had learned the building the way some people learned battlefields. Every exit, every choke point, every blind spot. They separated at the corner like co-workers going about routine. Wilder continued down the main hall, greeting a nurse with a tight smile that did not reach his eyes. Ava turned into the quieter side corridor and took the stairs. Her shoes echoed on concrete. The sound made her think of tunnels that smelled like dust and oil, places where sound carried too far. She forced the thought away and focused on the hospital around her. Paint, fluorescent light, a handrail cold under her palm. She emerged near the ICU and stepped back into her assigned world. Mina Park looked up from the desk as Ava approached. Mina's eyes took in Ava's face and the set of her shoulders. "You went to a lot of trouble to come back unnoticed," Mina said softly. Ava kept her voice low. "I did not want anyone asking why I was off the unit." Mina glanced toward the glass doors leading to the main corridor. "Wilder just walked past here like a man headed to surgery." Ava did not answer. Mina leaned closer, voice quiet. "The agents are in the building. Administration is buzzing." Ava's stomach tightened. "How do you know?" Mina gave a small look that said she had lived inside hospitals long enough to read the air. "People talk. Security talks. The kind of suits they brought in do not blend." Ava kept her hands busy. She checked her observation patient documented vitals, adjusted a line that did not need adjusting because movement gave her face a reason to look calm. Hours passed in fragments. Rounds, labs. A consult request that was not for her. A family member asking if the doctor could explain a medication change. Ava answered in gentle, clean sentences and smiled at the right moments. All the while, her mind stayed on one sentence she had spoken in Wilder's office. He hit it here. She felt the hospital differently now. Not as a place of healing, but as a structure full of access points and stored things. Closets with locks. Rooms that nobody entered unless something broke. Old wings with dust on the vents. Places where an ID badge opened doors without anyone looking up. At 2:10 in the afternoon, Wilder appeared at the ICU desk as if he belonged there. He did. Everyone treated him like he owned the floor. Mina straightened slightly and gave him a neutral nod. Wilder's gaze met Ava's. He did not gesture. He did not speak her name. He simply said, loud enough for the desk, to hear, "Dr. Michelle Mercer, I need you to review charts in the surgical admin office. Bring the last week of ICU transfers." It sounded like an order. It sounded like routine. Ava nodded. "Yes, Dr. Wilder." Mina's eyes flicked between them, then she looked back down at her screen. If she had questions, she kept them behind her face. Ava followed Wilder through a side corridor and into a quiet workroom lined with cabinets. The door shut. The fluorescent light buzzed. Wilder turned to her, his voice dropped. Phones. Ava shook her head. Mine is off. Mine too, he said. Keep it off. Do not carry it when we start looking. Ava hesitated. If Cole calls again, I will not know. Wilder's expression hardened. Cole is not the one I am worried about hearing us. Whoever has Pierce, whoever has the ability to walk into my hospital and demand my staff's records, they will use signals. They will use metadata. They will use anything. Ava felt a familiar chill. I know. Wilder opened a drawer and pulled out a small lockbox. He slid it across the counter. Leave your phone in here when the time comes. Ava stared at the box. You planned this. I have been planning since the moment you said his name, Wilder replied. I have spent 18 months living with silence. I will not waste time now. Ava swallowed. When? Wilder's gaze held hers. Tonight. Ava's pulse quickened. You cannot clear a hospital tonight. I can clear enough, he said. I ran this building through a crisis. I know how to move people without making it look like I am moving them. Ava thought of the staff who had stepped aside for him without being told. Authority was its own hallway key. What do we start with? Ava asked. Wilder reached into a folder and pulled out a simple floor plan printout. Security. Ava's jaw tightened. The security office is full of cameras. I am not walking in and asking for access logs on my son's fugitive trail, Wilder said. I am requesting an audit under the excuse of a recent system upgrade. It will look boring. It will look like paperwork. Ava nodded slowly. And if Pierce is watching, Wilder's voice stayed calm. Then I will look like a surgeon annoyed at a T. Ava almost smiled. Almost. Wilder continued. If Lucas planted something here, he had to get in. That means a badge, a temporary credential, or he had help. Ava's mind ran through possibilities. Contractors came and went daily. Maintenance, network, biomedical equipment, linen delivery. A single vest and a clipboard could carry someone anywhere. Also, Ava added, he would have needed to avoid leaving a trail or leave a trail he wanted us to find. Wilder's eyes narrowed. He wanted you to find it. Ava held the gaze. He wrote that he hid it somewhere only I could access. That sounds like a clue, not just a hiding place. Wilder's jaw tightened. Then the trail will be shaped. Deliberate. The door opened and Mina stepped in without knocking a stack of supplies in her arms as if she belonged there. Wilder's posture shifted, professional mask back in place. Mina. Mina set the supplies down, eyes on Ava. You want those transfer charts or you want privacy? Wilder hesitated for a fraction, then spoke plainly but softly. I need you to do something for me. Mina's expression did not change. Depends. I need you to cover a gap, Wilder said. Tonight. If anyone asks where Dr. Mercer is, you will say she is in the simulation lab catching up on ICU documentation. Mina looked at Ava's face. Her eyes sharpened with understanding that was older than curiosity. This is about those suits, Mina said. Wilder did not answer directly. Can you do it? Mina exhaled through her nose, then nodded once. I can do it. Ava felt a tug of gratitude and fear. Gratitude because Mina was choosing a side. Fear because choosing a side had consequences. Mina looked at Ava. If you two are about to do something stupid, at least do it quiet. Wilder's mouth tightened. Quiet is the plan. Mina left as smoothly as she arrived, door closing behind her. Ava turned back to Wilder. You trust her. Wilder's gaze moved to the door Mina had closed. I trust that Mina has seen enough in this building to know when something is wrong. And I trust that she has her own reasons. Ava nodded. Hospitals ran on loyalty as much as on medicine. The rest of the afternoon crawled. Ava returned to the ICU, did her tasks, spoke to no one more than necessary. Wilder moved through the surgical wing with controlled normalcy, signing charts, giving orders, holding a meeting with residents as if his mind was not elsewhere. At 11:40 that night, Ava walked into the same quiet workroom. The hospital felt different at night. Shadows longer, Voices softer, sounds sharper. The building never slept, but it shifted into a lower gear that made every movement stand out. Wilder was already there, coat-off sleeves rolled down a visitor badge lanyard in his hand for no obvious reason. His phone sat inside the lockbox. A second box waited on the counter. Ava placed her own phone inside and shut the lid. Wilder picked up a small folder and handed it to her. "You are my chart runner tonight," he said, voice quiet. "If someone sees us, you are doing a task. I am doing oversight." Ava took the folder. Her hands were steady. Her stomach was not. They moved through a service corridor behind the main surgical wing, passing storage rooms and supply closets. Wilder chose routes that avoided the brighter hallways. Ava recognized the pattern. He was moving like someone who did not want to be on camera, even when he was allowed to be. They reached a door marked with a simple sign, "Security Operations." Ava's pulse kicked once. Wilder did not hesitate. He opened the door with his badge and stepped inside like he had every right. The security room was dim lit by monitors. 2 guards sat at a console, one yawning, one scrolling on a phone that looked too old for the job. Both guards straightened when they saw Wilder. "Doctor," one of them said quickly. "Everything okay?" Wilder held up a sheet of paper. "I need access logs and camera verification for an internal audit. We had an upgrade on the North Side system last month, and administration wants confirmation the retention settings are correct." The guard blinked, then nodded. "Sure, doctor. We can pull the retention report." Wilder kept his tone mildly irritated, the tone of a man tired of bureaucracy. "I want the raw access logs for the last 3 weeks. Anything involving medical records, surgical supply, old storage areas. Also show me any camera downtime." Ava watched the guards exchange a glance. They were not used to a chief of surgery asking for this. But Wilder's name carried weight that made questions feel dangerous. The guard turned to the keyboard and began typing. Lines of data appeared on a monitor, timestamps, door IDs, badge numbers. Wilder leaned in, scanning with a focus Ava had only seen in an operating room. Ava stood slightly behind him, eyes moving over the list, looking for patterns the way she once looked for IED triggers on a road. The guard pointed at a section of the report. "There was a gap 2 weeks ago," he said. 4 hours. Cameras on the North Side wing. It was flagged as a system failure. Ava felt her spine stiffen. 4 hours missing. The guard nodded. "We filed it. It said it was a glitch." Wilder's eyes sharpened. A glitch that hits only one wing and only 4 hours. The guard swallowed. "That is what they told us." Wilder's voice stayed calm. "Show me access during that window." The guard pulled up another screen. Ava leaned closer. A list of swipes scrolled down. Not many. Night staff. A respiratory therapist. A lab tech. A few nurses. Then one entry that did not fit. Temporary contractor credential. Name on file, L. Hartman. Ava felt a cold certainty settle into her stomach. A name that could have been chosen at random. Or chosen because it sounded forgettable. Wilder pointed to the entry. "Pull the route." The guard hesitated. "Route doctor. Doors accessed with that credential," Wilder said. "Every swipe." The guard nodded quickly and clicked through. The list appeared. Medical records, surgical supply, service corridor access. Then an old door label Ava did not recognize, something buried in the building's older map. Archive storage. Ava looked at Wilder. His face had gone very still. "He was here," Wilder said quietly. Ava's mouth went dry. The hospital around her felt suddenly less safe, as if the walls had been compromised long ago and nobody noticed. Wilder asked the guard voice even any video of this contractor. The guard shook his head. Not in that wing during the gap. Cameras were down. Ava's mind flicked through the word down and rejected it. Cameras did not fall asleep for 4 hours on their own. Wilder looked at the guard. "Do not mention this to anyone." The guard nodded too fast. "Of course, doctor." Wilder turned toward the door. Ava followed, folder still in her hands, the paper suddenly feeling like a prop in a play, where the stage could collapse at any moment. In the corridor, Wilder stopped in a shadowed corner and spoke without looking at her. "Archive storage is in the older part of the building." Ava's breathing stayed steady. Basement. Wilder nodded once. Ava felt the building shift in her mind, corridors linking like a map. She imagined Lucas moving through them in a contractor vest, quiet, purposeful, deleting footage, as if erasing footsteps in snow. Wilder started walking again. Ava stayed beside him, sleeves pulled down, eyes forward, and the hospital around them hummed on, unaware that something had been planted inside its bones. The older part of Rocky Ridge did not feel like the rest of the hospital. The newer wings smelled like fresh paint and sanitizer, like money and compliance. This corridor smelled like dust trapped behind drywall, like paper that had been sleeping for years. Wilder led the way without hesitation. He did not use the main elevators. He chose a stairwell tucked behind the surgical supply rooms, a door most people walked past without seeing. Ava followed, folders still in her hands like a prop that gave them permission to exist. The stairwell was narrow and quiet. Concrete walls, a metal handrail cold enough to bite. 2 flights down, the air turned cooler. 1 more flight and the light took on a dimmer tone, as if the building itself was rationing electricity for places it no longer cared about. Wilder stopped at a locked door marked Archive Storage. The letters were faded. The sign had a crooked edge, like someone had replaced it in a hurry and never returned to straighten it. He swiped his badge. A red light blinked. He tried again, slower. Read again. Ava felt her pulse kick once. "Your badge does not open it." Wilder stared at the reader, jaw tight. "It should." Ava looked at his face. He had the expression of a man who had never been denied by a door in his own building. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring of keys. Ava raised an eyebrow. "You carry keys?" Wilder did not look at her. This hospital existed before badges. He tried the 3rd key, then the 4th. Metal scraped softly in the lock. The door gave a heavy click and opened inward. Ava stepped through and felt the temperature drop. The archive room was long, lined with shelves that rose toward the ceiling. Cardboard boxes sat in uneven stacks. File cabinets stood against the walls like silent sentries. A single fluorescent strip buzzed overhead, casting a pale light that made everything look slightly unreal. The floor had a thin coat of dust that did not belong in a place that claimed to be sterile. Wilder shut the door behind them. The latch sounded too final. Ava turned slowly, letting her eyes adjust, letting her mind map the room. No windows. 1 visible exit. The kind of space where sound carried and secrets stayed. Wilder moved to a small desk near the entrance. A clipboard sat there, abandoned, with an inventory sheet that looked untouched for months. He picked it up, scanned it, then set it down. "Everything is here," he said quietly. Old records. Old legal. Anything they did not want in the main system. Ava walked toward the nearest shelf. The boxes were labeled by year and department. Orthopedics, cardiology, general surgery. Then further down, a section marked Veterans Services. Her stomach tightened. She did not tell Wilder why that label hit her. She simply kept moving. Wilder's voice came from behind her. If Lucas came in under a contractor credential, he would not go to a place that people check daily. Ava nodded. He would choose a place where absence is normal. Wilder stepped beside her, eyes scanning the shelves. He accessed archive storage after medical records and surgical supply. Ava pictured the swipe trail again. It did not look like someone wandering. It looked like someone following a list. What would he do in surgical supply? Ava asked. Wilder's mouth tightened. Gloves, a disposable mask, a cap, a maintenance vest if he needed one. Anything that makes you part of the scenery. Ava thought of how easy it was to vanish in a hospital if you looked like you belonged. She had done it all day, hiding in plain sight. They walked deeper into the archive. Their footsteps were soft against the dusty floor. Ava kept her breathing steady. She listened for anything beyond their movement, any shift in the building's hum. Nothing. Just silence and the faint buzz of the overhead light. Wilder reached the end of a row and stopped. If he hid physical evidence, it would need to be somewhere that does not get thrown out. Ava's eyes moved over the boxes. Somewhere nobody touches. Wilder looked at her. Somewhere only you could access. Ava swallowed. The phrase sat in her mind like a splinter. Somewhere only you could access. Lucas had chosen those words deliberately. He had always been deliberate, even when he was bleeding. Ava closed her eyes for a moment and replayed the message again, hearing it as if it were spoken aloud. The encryption, the layered routing, the way it vanished after she read it. Lucas did not waste language. He did not write poetry. He wrote instructions. Somewhere safe. Somewhere only you could access. Ava opened her eyes and stared at the Veterans Services shelf. Wilder followed her gaze. What? Ava spoke slowly. He referenced my service record. Wilder's brow tightened. In the message. Yes, Ava said. Not as a story, as a key. Wilder's voice stayed low. Explain. Ava ran her fingers lightly over the edge of a cardboard box, feeling the grain of it. If he wanted a place, only I would look, he would anchor it to something that belongs to me. Not to you, not to him, to me. Wilder's face held tension and focus, as if he were trying to force his mind to match her logic. Your name. Ava nodded once. My name. My record. Something filed under me. Wilder glanced around, then back to her. You think he placed it inside a folder labeled Mercer. Ava's mouth went tight. It is the kind of hiding place that is invisible to everyone who is not me. Wilder exhaled through his nose. Then find it. Ava moved. She started at the beginning of the veterans section. Boxes labeled by letter. A through H. Then I through P. Then Q through Z. The labels were old, handwritten and smudged by time. She found the M box and pulled it down. Dust puffed into the air. She coughed once quietly and set it on the floor. Inside were manila folders, each with a name and a date range. Most were thick with decades of forms. Discharge notes, consent, procedures, follow-ups. The paper carried the weight of people who had come home different. Ava flipped through careful. Martin, Mason, Matthews, McKenna, Mercer. Her fingers paused. The Mercer folder was there, but it looked wrong. Not wrong in a dramatic way. Wrong in a way her body noticed before her mind did. The folder was too clean, the edges too crisp, the tab too bright compared to the softened handled tabs around it. Ava's throat tightened. Wilder crouched beside her, eyes on the folder. That is it. Ava did not answer. Her fingers slid it out slowly. It was not a normal file. It was an envelope inside a file. A manila envelope tucked under the first page like an afterthought. Ava lifted it. It had weight. Not much. Just enough to tell her something solid was inside. Wilder's voice was a whisper. Open it. Ava's hands did not shake. That was the part that scared her. She had felt more tremor holding a coffee cup after a night shift than she felt in this moment. She peeled the flap. Inside was a small black USB drive and a folded piece of paper. The paper was thicker than hospital forms. The fold was sharp. Ava stared at it and her chest tightened with a strange, painful recognition that had nothing to do with ink or encryption. Handwriting. She knew that handwriting. Lucas wrote the way he moved. Clean lines. No wasted curves. Letters that looked like they had been trained. Ava did not unfold it yet. She held it between her fingers and felt her pulse in her fingertips. Wilder's breath sounded rough behind her. That is his. Ava nodded once. She still did not open the note. Not because she wanted to delay, because she understood what opening it meant. Once she read it, she would not be able to pretend she could step away. Once Wilder read it, he would not be able to pretend he could return to surgery and let other people handle his son's fate. Ava glanced up at Wilder. His face was pale, but his eyes were fixed on the paper like it was oxygen. She unfolded the note. The first line was enough to make her stomach drop. Ava did not read it aloud. Not yet. Her eyes moved over the words, and the room seemed to tighten around her as if the air had thickened. Wilder leaned closer, trying to see. What does it say? Ava's mouth went dry. She looked at the USB drive, then back at the paper. Before she could answer, the fluorescent strip above them flickered once. Then again. The buzz changed pitch. Ava froze. Wilder's head lifted sharply. That is not normal. The light cut out. The archive room fell into complete darkness. For a beat, there was nothing but the sound of their breathing and the distant heartbeat of the hospital above them. The emergency backup lights should have come on. They did not. Ava's hand closed around the USB drive so hard the edges pressed into her palm. Wilder's fingers found her sleeve, gripping her forearm in the dark, steadying her without thinking. In the silence, a new sound rose from beyond the door. Footsteps on the stairs. Not rushed, not clumsy. Measured. Multiple. In the darkness, Ava could hear the stairwell breathing. A hollow draft pushed under the archive door, carrying the faint scent of cold concrete. And something else, a clean chemical tang that did not belong down here. Wilder's grip tightened on her forearm, steady and urgent, his thumb pressing once, as if to anchor her in place. Footsteps came closer, measured and coordinated. Not the uneven shuffle of hospital security, not the hurried scuff of a nurse who forgot supplies. These steps hit the stairs like metronomes. Ava slid the USB into her scrub pocket and folded the note fast, creasing it tight. She tucked it into the folder and held the folder to her chest. Wilder leaned in so close she could feel his breath. "Give me the drive." Ava shook her head once small. Not yet. His fingers found her sleeve again, and this time he did not argue. He nodded, jaw clenched. The door handle rattled softly. Ava's eyes adjusted to the faintest glow, a green exit sign above the archive door that must have been running on its own battery. It painted the room in a sickly tint, just enough to outline shelves and boxes, just enough to see Wilder's face. His expression had changed, not anger, not command. Calculation. The handle turned. The door did not open. Wilder had locked it. A beat passed. Then a voice traveled through the door, calm, feminine, and too sure of itself. Dr. Mercer, Dr. Wilder, Dana Pierce. The way she said their names made Ava's stomach drop. No confusion, no uncertainty. She was not searching. She was confirming. "We know you are down there," Pierce said. "Come up slowly." Hands visible. Wilder's eyes narrowed, and he leaned toward the door without touching it. "This is private hospital property. You have no authority to shut down my building." Pierce's voice did not change. "Authority is not your concern right now." Ava felt the cold spread under her ribs. The backup lights were still dead. The cameras in this wing had been wiped. They were in a room with paper walls and one locked door. That was not an accident. It was a trap. Ava moved to the shelf beside them and crouched, using the exit sign's thin light. She unfolded the note again with one hand fast and read the lines her eyes had not finished consuming. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Ava, if you are reading this, I am either captured or dead." Ava's throat tightened. She forced her eyes down. The drive contains everything. Audio, transfers, photos, names. General Adrian Kessler ordered the ambush. He is selling weapons through cutouts and erasing anyone who gets close. Dana Pierce works for him. The words hit like a slap. Wilder leaned down, trying to see, and Ava angled the paper toward him. His face turned pale in the green light. His eyes moved quickly, reading like a surgeon scans an operative note when minutes matter. Pierce's voice came again, closer now. "You have something that does not belong to you." Wilder did not answer. His hand went to the pocket of his coat, but he did not pull a phone. He did not have one. Ava knew his phone was locked away upstairs. She could almost feel the uselessness of that lockbox now. Ava kept reading. "They will call me a traitor. They will call you compromised. Do not use official channels. Do not go to one reporter. Release it everywhere at once. Tell my father I am sorry. Tell him I tried." Ava swallowed hard. Wilder's breathing sounded rough, but he stayed quiet. His eyes lifted from the note to Ava's face, and she saw it in him, the shift from shock to clarity. He understood what this meant. He understood that the suits in the conference room had not been there to save his son. They had been there to shape the story of his son. Pierce's voice sharpened. "Open the door!" Ava folded the note and pressed it against her chest. She looked around the archive room again, forcing her mind into motion. One door, one exit sign, miles of shelves, and then she saw it. A narrow service hatch at the far end of the room, half hidden behind a stack of old wheelchairs with cracked rubber tires. A metal panel with a latch painted the same dull beige as the wall. The kind of thing nobody sees unless they are trained to look for it. Ava caught Wilder's eye and tilted her chin toward it. Wilder followed her gaze and his jaw tightened. He knew it too. Pierce's voice came again, still calm, but there was impatience beneath it now. Dr. Wilder, do not be difficult. You are making this worse. Wilder leaned toward Ava, voice barely audible. On three, Ava nodded, heart pounding. The door handle rattled again, harder. A shoulder hit the door once, testing. Wilder moved first. He crossed the room in a low, fast line, careful not to kick boxes or scrape metal. Ava followed, hugging the shelves, the file folder tight against her body. Behind them, the door shuddered under a heavier strike. Wood creaked. Ava reached the stack of wheelchairs and grabbed the nearest frame. It rolled a few inches with a squeal that sounded enormous in the dark. She froze, listening. The footsteps outside paused. Pierce's voice cut through, closer to the door now. They are moving. Breach it. Ava's skin went cold. Wilder yanked the wheelchairs aside and crouched at the service hatch. His fingers found the latch in the dim light. He pulled. It did not move. He tried again, harder. The latch shifted a fraction, then stuck. Ava crouched beside him and pressed her fingers to the metal edge. The hatch was old. The paint had sealed it shut. Wilder's jaw clenched. He pulled again, both hands now. The metal protested with a groan that felt like it traveled up Ava's spine. Behind them, the archive door cracked. A sliver of brighter light sliced in, and with it came the first sharp beam of a flashlight. Ava heard a radio chirp. A man's voice, low, professional. Door is giving. Another hit. Pierce's voice colder now. No mistakes. No witnesses. The words drained the last illusion from the room. This was not an arrest. This was a cleanup. Ava's mouth went dry. She looked at Wilder. He heard it too. His eyes widened, then narrowed, and he pulled the hatch with a violence that did not belong to a surgeon's hands. The paint seal finally broke with a loud crack. The hatch swung outward. A rush of stale air poured from the opening, thick with dust and old oil. A narrow tunnel yawned behind it, just wide enough to crawl, lined with pipes that disappeared into darkness. Wilder grabbed Ava's wrist, guiding her toward the opening. Go! Ava slid the file folder through first, then dropped to her hands and knees and climbed in the concrete, scraping her palms through her gloves. Wilder followed, and as he did, the archive door splintered fully. Flashlight beams flooded the room. Ava heard boots on the dusty floor. Tunnel, someone barked. Wilder reached back and hauled the hatch closed. The latch did not fully catch, but it slowed the opening. He shoved a loose pipe brace into the gap, wedging it with force, then turned and crawled after Ava. The tunnel was cramped. Pipes ran along one wall, cold and slick. The floor was uneven concrete with small puddles that reflected the exit sign's fading glow behind them. Ava crawled fast. Breath-controlled shoulders brushing the sides. Wilder's breathing behind her was heavier, anger and fear mixed into each exhale. Flashlight beams appeared at the hatch, thin lines cutting into the tunnel's darkness. A voice echoed down the narrow space. Stop. You cannot run from this. Pierce again. Ava kept moving. The tunnel bent left, then narrowed. Ava felt a seam of panic try to open in her chest and forced it shut. She had been in tighter spaces than this. She had moved through darkness with louder sounds behind her. She focused on details. The rough concrete, the smell of rust, the wet slap of her knee against a puddle. The tunnel opened into a larger service corridor, still unlit, but with faint ambient light leaking from somewhere ahead. Ava rose into a crouch and moved faster. Wilder stayed close, one hand on the wall to keep balance. And the hand on, son. Behind them, the hatch banged open. Metal clanged. Boots hit the floor of the corridor. They were in. Wilder leaned toward Ava, voice tight, left. Ava followed him around a corner into a wider passage lined with old equipment carts and discarded stretchers. The building here felt abandoned, like an older hospital hidden under the newer one. Ava's mind flashed to the note again. Release it everywhere, at once. She touched her scrub pocket, feeling the hard shape of the USB drive. It was small. It could be taken. It could be crushed. It could be lost in a second. Wilder looked back once, and in the faint light, she saw his face. A father who had been told his son was a fugitive. A surgeon who had just heard an agent order no witnesses. A man whose world had narrowed to one task. He reached out and gripped her forearm again, not gentle, not controlling, just present. "Do you still have it?" Ava nodded, yes. They ran, shoes striking concrete, the sound echoing ahead of them like a warning. A flashlight beam swept across the corridor behind them, then another, then a third. Pierce's voice carried through the space, amplified by the walls. "Do not let them out of the building." Ava's lungs burned as she ran. Her sleeve slid up slightly and she felt the cold air touch the tattoo on her wrist like a sting. Wilder turned into another corridor, one with a rusted sign half torn away. Ava caught a glimpse of the letters. Equipment transfer. The passage sloped upward. Ava could feel the air changing, less stale, more connected to the living hospital above. Boots thundered behind them, now closer. The tactical team moved with steady discipline, and Ava could hear the clipped cadence of commands through radios. Wilder pushed a door open, and they spilled into a small room filled with stacked chairs and old cartons. A single narrow window near the ceiling showed nothing but darkness. Wilder looked around fast, then crossed to another door and tried the handle. Locked. Ava's pulse kicked hard. Wilder tried again, shoulder tight. Locked. A flashlight beam slid across the window above them. A shadow passed. Ava's mouth went dry. She could hear the team outside, spreading, sweeping, tightening the circle. Wilder turned back to Ava, eyes bright with urgency. His voice dropped to a whisper. "We need to get the drive out of your pocket and into a place they cannot erase." Ava pressed her hand over the USB, feeling its edges. She looked at Wilder and understood the same thing he did. They were not running for their lives alone. They were running with a story powerful enough to make people kill inside a hospital to keep it quiet. Wilder's eyes moved across the cramped room like he was scanning an operating field. Stacked chairs, cardboard cartons, a dust-coated cabinet against the wall. 2 doors, one locked, one barely hanging on a bent hinge. No clean exit. Outside, boots scraped, paused, shifted. Flashlight beams slid under the gap at the bottom of the door like thin knives of light. Ava pressed her palm over the USB drive in her pocket. She could feel its hard edges through fabric. Small enough to lose, important enough to kill for. Wilder leaned close, voice barely above breath. "Give it to me." Ava held his gaze. "Not unless you can get it out." His jaw tightened. "I can." Ava's eyes flicked to the ceiling. Pipes ran overhead, old and dusty, and there was a vent cover screwed into place near the corner. Too small for a person. Big enough for a hand and a secret. She stepped to it, rose onto a chair, and tested the metal with her fingertips. It was loose. Wilder watched her, then moved to brace the chair with one hand steady as a surgical assistant. Ava pulled the vent cover down carefully. Dust rained onto her sleeves. She reached inside. The duct was shallow, a dead pocket that ran a few feet and ended. A hiding place for nothing but air. Ava slid the file folder into the duct first, then paused. Her fingers closed around the USB drive in her pocket. Wilder's hand came up, hovering. "Ava." She looked at him. In the dim light, his face held a kind of resolve she had not seen in the conference room. It was the resolve of a father who had decided that fear was no longer useful. Ava placed the USB in his hand. He did not pocket it. He held it like something fragile, then looked toward the locked door as the latch rattled. Pierce's voice carried through the hallway, close now. "Open it." Metal clicked. Someone tested the handle again, harder. Wilder's gaze snapped to Ava. "If they take it, it dies." Ava's mind moved fast, assembling routes from scraps. Equipment transfer corridor, sloping passage, an older service level that connected to renovation spaces. Wilder had walked these hallways for years. He had said the hospital existed before badges. "Is there a phone?" Ava whispered. Wilder's eyes shifted to the wall. A beige box half hidden behind stacked cartons. A wall phone, old, corded, the kind people forgot existed. Wilder crossed the room, yanked it off the cradle, and listened. A faint tone. Ava's stomach tightened. A line meant traceable. It also meant contact. Wilder punched numbers from memory without looking down. Ava climbed down from the chair and stepped to the door, ear angled toward the hallway. The boots outside repositioned again. She heard a soft radio chirp, then a murmur of voices too low to catch. Wilder spoke into the receiver, voice controlled. "I need Senator Elise Harrington. Now." "This is Dr. Grant Wilder." A pause. A distant voice on the line, cautious. A request for confirmation. Wilder's tone hardened. "Tell her my son is Captain Lucas Wilder. Tell her it is urgent. Tell her I am about to be killed in my own hospital." Ava's pulse hammered. The line went quiet. Then a new voice came on, sharper, older, exhausted. Dr. Senator Harrington said, "It is past midnight. Talk." Wilder's shoulders lifted with a breath. "Senator, I have evidence that General Adrian Kessler ordered an ambush on American personnel and has been running illegal weapons transfers. My son stole documentation and hid it to expose the truth. A DOD agent named Dana Pierce is here with a tactical team inside my hospital trying to kill me and Dr. Ava Mercer to retrieve it." Ava heard a faint shift on the line, like someone sitting up straighter. "You understand what you are saying," Harrington replied, voice suddenly cold. "I understand," Wilder said. "I need a secure endpoint, something I can upload to immediately. I need it distributed before they take the drive." Silence, then the senator spoke faster. "I am putting you on with my chief of staff. You will get a secure portal link and a credential. If you are lying, you are finished. If you are telling the truth, you are still in danger." Wilder did not blink. "We are already in danger." The door handle outside jammed again, then rattled with more force. Wood creaked. Ava pressed her shoulder to the door, bracing it, even though she knew it would not hold long. Wilder listened, then wrote something on the back of a torn cardboard flap with a pen he pulled from his pocket. A short string of letters and numbers. A password. A link. A name. He hung up the receiver and looked at Ava. "We need a computer." Ava's eyes darted around the room. No terminal, no monitor, nothing. Wilder grabbed the USB, shoved it into his coat pocket, then moved to the second door, the one with the bent hinge. He shouldered it open and revealed a narrow passage lined with supply carts. Ava followed, and the sound of the tactical team outside shifted, reacting. "Move," Wilder whispered. They ran. The passage spilled into the equipment transfer corridor, again, sloped and stale. Their footsteps echoed. Ava held the file folder tight. Her thumb pressed against the folded note inside like it could steady her heart. Flashlight beams swept behind them. Voices rose clipped and controlled. "They are in the transfer corridor. Cut them off at the renovation junction." Ava's lungs burned. Wilder's pace was relentless. He knew exactly where he was going, turning left, before Ava saw the sign pushing through a door with a faded placard that read, "Renovation Access." Inside, the air changed. Drywall dust, exposed studs, plastic sheeting taped in place, the smell of new wiring. Ava's shoes stuck slightly to the tacky floor covering as they moved deeper into the unfinished space. A few work lights glowed dimly on extension cords, casting harsh cones of light in an otherwise dark shell. Wilder scanned and spotted a small temporary office built from modular panels, a folding table, 2 metal chairs, a contractor-grade desktop computer humming softly beside a monitor. Ava felt a sharp jolt of relief that lasted less than a second, replaced by fear as boots sounded in the corridor behind them. Wilder yanked the office door open and motioned Ava inside. She slipped in and turned, hearing the thud of Wilder shoving the door closed. "It locks," Ava said, seeing the latch. "It slows," Wilder corrected. He crossed to the computer and shook the mouse. The monitor flickered awake, showing a login screen. He swore under his breath, then typed quickly. Ava did not ask how he knew the password. Hospitals taught people how to take shortcuts, and Wilder had always been the one who made shortcuts happen. A desktop appeared. Wilder pulled the USB from his pocket with a steady hand, plugged it in, and opened in the drive. Ava moved to the office door and pressed her ear against it. The voices were closer now. Flashlights splashed against the plastic sheeting outside. Pierce's voice cut through the muffled space. "They cannot leave this floor." Ava's skin went cold. She closed her eyes for half a second, forcing breath into her lungs, then opened them again and focused on the tiny office. The tiny door, the thin wall between them, and people who had already said no witnesses. Wilder's fingers flew over the keyboard. He opened a browser, typed the portal link, entered the credential string. A secure upload page loaded. "Hold the door," Wilder said. Ava glanced at the folding table. She grabbed it and dragged it across the floor with a scrape, wedging it against the door. She shoved one metal chair under the table edge, then braced her shoulder against the improvised barrier. Outside, something hit the door once, testing. Not full force. A probe. Ava kept her shoulder in place and did not breathe. Wilder clicked into folders on the USB. The file names flashed on the screen in rapid sequence. Audio recordings, video clips, scanned documents, ledger images, photographs with timestamps, a spreadsheet that looked like money moving through shell entities like blood through veins. Ava's stomach turned. It was not one allegation. It was a map. Wilder selected all and dragged them into the upload queue. A progress bar appeared. 2%. Ava heard the tactical team shifting outside, spreading. A radio chirped, then a low voice answered. "Door is secured. We can breach." Pierce's voice again, calm and final. "Do it." The door shook under a harder strike. The folding table creaked. Ava planted her feet, shoulder tight, jaw clenched, and pushed back with everything she had. 4%. Wilder's voice came through clenched teeth. "Come on!" The door hit again. The table slid an inch, scraping. Ava tasted metal. She adjusted, dropped her weight lower, and held. 7%. Wilder glanced at the bar, then at Ava, and something flashed in his eyes that was not just fear. It was apology. A father dragging a stranger into his fire because he refused to let his child burn alone. Ava did not let herself soften. Softness made you break. 10%. A third strike slammed the door. The chair buckled slightly. Ava shoved it back into position with her knee without moving her shoulder. Outside, a voice called, "We have them pinned." Pierce answered colder. "Take them alive if possible. If not, end it." Ava's breath hitched once, then steadied. Alive if possible was not a promise. It was a preference. 16%. Wilder's hands hovered for a second, as if he wanted to do something faster than the machine allowed. Then he opened another window, typed numbers, and glanced at the screen. "What are you doing?" Ava asked through clenched teeth. "Sending a direct alert to her staff," Wilder replied. "If the portal stalls, they still get the ping." Ava's shoulder burned from pressure. The door shuddered again. The folding table shifted. A crack appeared near the latch where the temporary office panel met its frame. 22%. Ava heard boots repositioning and a new sound, metallic like a tool being readied. Wilder looked up, eyes sharp. "They are bringing something." Ava's voice was low. "Then finish." 30%. The door erupted with a blunt impact that made Ava's teeth clack. The table slid, then caught. Ava pushed back harder, muscles trembling. The upload bar kept moving. 38%. Wilder's face stayed calm, but sweat shone at his hairline. He watched the bar like it was a heartbeat monitor. Outside, Pierce's voice was close, right on the other side of the thin panel. "Dr. Wilder, Dr. Mercer, this is your last chance to cooperate." Wilder did not respond. Ava pressed her cheek against the panel and listened for the next move. She heard the faint hiss of tape peeling and knew someone was moving around the office wall, not just the door. Ava's eyes flicked to the corner where plastic sheeting met exposed studs. A flashlight beam swept across it and paused. "They are in there," a man's voice said. Wilder's hands never stopped. 52%. Ava could not hold the door and watch the walls at the same time. She shifted her weight, then grabbed the second chair and flung it toward the plastic sheeting hard. It crashed into the studs and tore the sheeting with a loud rip. The flashlight beam jerked away. Ava hoped it bought seconds. Seconds were everything. 61%. The door hit again, stronger. The latch area began to splinter, tiny fragments falling to the floor. Wilder's voice was steady, almost gentle. "Ava, when it finishes, we move." Ava did not answer. She could not spare breath. 70%. Something clanged outside, then the door jolted as if pried. The folding table lifted a fraction, then slammed back down. Ava pushed harder, her shoulders screaming now. 81%. Wilder's eyes flicked to the clock on the computer screen, then back to the bar. His breathing was controlled the way surgeons breathe when they do not want their hands to shake. 90%. Ava heard Pierce's voice again, very close, almost conversational. You cannot win this. We contain everything. Ava tasted blood where she had bitten her tongue. 96%. The door split at the latch. Ava felt the table shift the chair, slide the barrier collapsing. 99%. The bar filled. A small message appeared on the screen. Upload complete. Wilder's hand shot to the keyboard and hit send on a confirmation message. He yanked the USB from the port and shoved it into Ava's hands. Keep it, he said. Even if they take us, keep it. Ava stared at him for a fraction of a second. It is already out. Wilder's eyes stayed on hers. Then this is proof we did not imagine it. The door burst inward. The folding table lurched, then toppled. A tactical flashlight beam flooded the tiny office blinding in white. Boots stepped over the debris. A weapon muzzle pointed toward Ava's chest, steady and practiced. Dana Pierce stepped into the doorway behind them, face calm, eyes flat. Wilder raised his hands slowly. Ava did the same, the USB clenched in her palm. Pierce looked at the computer screen, then at Wilder. You made a choice. Wilder's voice was even. So did you. Pierce's jaw tightened. She lifted her phone to her ear as if receiving instructions. Her eyes flicked once quick, then returned to Wilder with a sharpness that suggested the conversation was not going the way she expected. She listened, face draining by degrees. Then a new sound cut through the renovation space, louder than boots and flashlights. Voices. Different voices. Clearer. Official, but not the same cadence as Pierce's team. Federal agents, weapons down, now. A man stepped into the harsh work light beyond Pierce's shoulder, holding up credentials and a badge that caught the light in a clean flash. Behind him, cameras were already recording. The man who stepped into the work light did not shout. He did not need to. The room changed around him, the way a ward changes when the attending arrives. Federal agents, he said again, voice calm and absolute. Weapons down. Now. 2 more agents moved in behind him, then 3, then a dozen, their badges visible. Their posture controlled their cameras already running. The bright dots of recording lights blinked in the dim renovation space like watchful eyes. Dana Pierce froze for half a heartbeat, just long enough for Ava to see the calculation flicker across her face. Pierce's team did not lower their weapons. Not yet. They looked at Pierce, waiting for permission. Wilder stood with his hands up, jaw tight, eyes fixed on Pierce. Ava kept her hands raised as well, the USB clenched in her palm. Her pulse hammered in her ears, but her face stayed still. The lead agent stepped closer. He was tall, clean-cut suit jacket open enough to show his holster. His badge flashed again as he held it steady. Agent Dana Pierce, he said, voice colder now. You and your team are operating outside legal authority. Put the weapons down. Pierce's lips parted slightly. You have no jurisdiction here. The agent did not blink. I am Special Agent in Charge, Daniel Harlow, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I am here under emergency authorization requested by Senator Elise Harrington and verified through the Deputy Attorney General's office. The authorization includes this building, this floor, and any personnel engaged in criminal activity under color of authority. Pierce's eyes narrowed. This is a national security matter. Harlow stepped closer, and the cameras behind him tracked every inch. It is a federal crime matter, he replied. Attempted homicide inside a civilian hospital is not a national security strategy. It is a felony. Pierce's jaw tightened as if she wanted to argue again, but her eyes flicked toward her phone still in her hand. The screen was lit. Someone was calling her. Ava watched Pierce's pupils shift. As she read the caller ID, for the first time, Pierce looked human. Not afraid, exactly. More like someone who had realized she was no longer protected by the story she believed. Pierce answered. She did not speak at first. She listened. Ava could not hear the words on the other end, but she saw the effect. Pierce's face drained, slowly. Her throat moved with a swallow she could not hide. Yes, sir, Pierce said finally, voice low. Understood. She lowered the phone and stared at Harlow for a beat that stretched too long. Then her shoulders dropped a fraction. Weapons down, Pierce ordered. Her team hesitated, then complied. Rifles lowered. Pistols eased toward holsters. The shift released a tiny breath in the room as if the air itself had been holding. Harlow gestured once. Agents stepped forward in a smooth line, securing weapons, guiding Pierce's people back, controlling hands and wrists, with practiced efficiency. Plastic cuffs clicked. One of Pierce's men started to speak, then stopped when a camera turned toward him. Pierce did not resist. She kept her chin up, eyes hard, but her posture had changed. Not defeated, exposed. Wilder lowered his hands slowly. Harlow's gaze moved to Ava, then to Wilder. Dr. Ava Mercer. Dr. Grant Wilder. Yes, Wilder said. Harlow looked at the computer screen, then at the broken door, then at the toppled table. His expression tightened as if he were stepping through the scene in his mind, and arriving at the same conclusion Ava had already reached. You were seconds from being executed, Harlow said quietly. Pierce's mouth twitched almost a smile without warmth. We were here to recover property. Harlow turned to her. Property does not require cutting power and deleting surveillance. Property does not require the phrase, no witnesses. Pierce held his gaze. You think you can keep this contained? Harlow's expression did not change. Contained is not the goal. Accountable is. Wilder's voice came out rough. Where is my son? Harlow's eyes softened just slightly, but he kept his tone professional. Captain Lucas Wilder is alive. Wilder's shoulders sagged, relief hitting him like a physical wave. His hand found the edge of the folding table, steadying himself. Ava saw his throat work as if he were swallowing a sob. Harlow continued, he is in protective custody. Wilder's eyes snapped up. Where? Harlow glanced to one of his agents, who nodded once, as if confirming. He turned himself in at a United States consulate office in Zurich 2 hours ago. He requested federal protection and offered to testify. Ava felt her knees go loose for a second. She kept her stance steady, but her lungs finally took a full breath. The air tasted like dust and drywall and something like relief. Wilder's eyes glistened. He covered it quickly with a swallow and a hard blink. He is safe. He is guarded, Harlow corrected. Safe is a moving target right now. But he is not alone. Ava's hand tightened around the USB. Harlow noticed. What is in your hand? Ava opened her fingers and held it out. A copy. The original drive. Harlow's gaze flicked to the computer screen again, where the completed upload message still sat. And you transmitted the files, Wilder answered, to Senator Harrington's secure portal. Harlow nodded once, as if he had expected that. Good. That creates redundancy. It makes the story harder to erase. Pierce's eyes sharpened. You think a senator can protect you from a general? Harlow turned toward her. General Adrian Kessler is no longer in command of anything. Federal warrants were signed 40 minutes ago. Assets are being seized. His communications are being frozen. His staff is being interviewed. Pierce's face went rigid. One of Harlow's agents stepped forward and handed him a phone. Harlow listened briefly, then looked back at Wilder. Senator Harrington moved fast, Harlow said. Once the first file hit her secure channel, she made calls to people who do not owe Kessler favors. That is why we are here. Wilder let out a breath that sounded like exhaustion. And my son will not be called a traitor. Harlow's voice stayed even. Captain Wilder will have legal counsel and a protected forum to speak. The narrative will be contested in court, not in a hallway. Pierce's mouth tightened, but she did not speak. 2 agents guided her toward the corridor. As she passed Ava, her eyes met Ava's for a brief second. You should have stayed quiet, Pierce said softly. Ava held her gaze. People tried to kill us in a hospital. Pierce did not respond. She walked on cuffs, visible posture, still proud, but no longer untouchable. Harlow signaled his team. The renovation space filled with movement. Evidence bags. Photographs. Agents speaking into radios with clipped clarity. The calm efficiency of people who arrived to clean up a mess without adding new blood. Wilder turned to Ava, and for the first time since the ER hallway, the authority in his face dissolved into something personal. "You saved him once," he said, voice low. "And you saved the truth this time." Ava's throat tightened. "I did not do it alone." Wilder's eyes flicked toward the direction Pierce had gone. "You were the one who did not let them take the drive." Ava looked down at the folded note still pressed inside the file folder. Lucas's handwriting. Lucas's apology. The weight of it sat in her chest like a stone that had finally stopped rolling. Harlow approached again, tone gentler. "Dr. Mercer, you are not under arrest. Not today. You will be interviewed again and there will be paperwork. But you will go home." Ava nodded once. Home did not feel like a place. It felt like a word people said. They were escorted out through the renovation corridor and back into the living hospital. Lights were on now. Generators hummed. Hallways filled with uniformed officers and federal agents. Staff stood in clusters, whispering behind hands, eyes wide, trying to understand why their ordinary night had turned into something else. Mina Park stood near the ICU desk, arms crossed, watching the stream of agents with a steady expression. When Ava's eyes met hers, Mina did not ask questions. She gave one small nod, the kind that meant she had seen enough to know not to speak. Wilder walked beside Ava through the main corridor. Somewhere outside, rotors thumped faintly through the walls. Ava did not look out the windows, but she could feel the attention circling the building. News did not wait for permission. At the surgical wing entrance, Wilder stopped. His face was tired, lined in a way it had not been yesterday. "When this is over," he said, voice quiet, "I want you on my team. Not as a favor, not as penance, because you are the kind of surgeon this place needs." Ava held his gaze. "You told them I was inexperienced." Wilder's mouth tightened, and the closest thing to regret flickered across his eyes. "I was wrong." Ava exhaled slowly. She did not smile, not yet. But something in her chest loosened just a fraction. Wilder looked toward the hallway where his office waited, where the photo of Lucas sat on his desk. "I am going to see my son." Ava nodded once. "He will want to see you?" Wilder hesitated, then reached out and placed a hand briefly on Ava's shoulder. It was not a grand gesture. It was a quiet acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked away, posture still straight, but with a different weight carried inside it. Ava stood for a moment in the bright hospital light, listening to the steady beeps from patient rooms, the soft voices of nurses, the normal machinery of saving lives, continuing as if the building had not nearly become a grave. Then she tucked the note deeper into the folder, squared her shoulders, and stepped back into the flow. If you watched all the way to the end, I want to hear from you. Drop your city or country in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, please like and subscribe.